put on your seatbelts because we're going to talk about drug dealers. We're going to talk about the scummy drug dealers who are advertising on TV now. Yeah, they're advertising on TV. You're seeing them on every street corner just about, opening up new Walgreens, new CVS, new stores everywhere. The legal drug dealers, every bit as bad, even worse than the illegal ones. Alesandra Rain, in her memoir, Deeds of Trust, captures her riveting true story of deception and intrigue. She was conned out of her money, poisoned by her ex-husband, but she was misdiagnosed and over-medicated by doctors. When I asked her about what the toughest part of her ordeal was, the being poisoned, almost going to jail, the whole thing that she went through, losing all of her money, she said, getting off the drugs. Her book, Point of Return, offers a safe and sane manner to taper off anti-anxiety, antidepressant prescription drugs. Make no mistake about it, America is being drugged. www.pointofreturn.com can help you get off of legal drugs, illegal drugs, any type of drugs. Rise is her upcoming continuing story. It's in production for an upcoming movie. And you can find out more by going to AlesandraRain.com. It's all listed on ErskineOnRadio.com, thanks to Dave. She'll be joined by our friend Wendy Honeycutt, who has a story of courage and hope that will certainly inspire us during this Christmas season. Wendy is incredible what she went through. Her first son contracted spinal meningitis right after birth, ended up severely retarded. Her mother committed suicide. A few years later, her brother, who was her best friend, killed himself in an identical manner. Then she lost her middle son in a freak four-wheeling accident. She has really been through the mill, ended up in pills, and was lost for a number of years. Well, she's now a Christian minister, and very, very interesting person, how she got off of drugs and came through it. Welcome, ladies. Welcome, Alesandra. Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
It's good to have both of you here, period, after what you've been through. But it's been said that the Lord doesn't give you any more than you can handle, but at certain points, he kind of pushes the envelope. Doesn't he, Wendy?
He does. That's certainly true.
I've heard that, and, you know, it sounds good, but when you're in the middle of it and you're on these drugs and you're on the downhill slope and you've had everybody you loved or cared about dying and in terrible shape, it's hard to say, Jesus, thank you. You know, it's really a hard thing to do, isn't it?
It certainly is. It certainly is. There's no doubt about that.
And when you've been through everything that Alesandra has been through, it's very hard to say, oh, God is good, God is great, everything's going to be all right. So people at home, they think they've had it rough. Until you read Deeds of Trust, you don't know what rough is. But coming out on the other end, stronger, better, and able to handle much, much more. Now, we've had a couple of people that I want to talk about specifically right now, and we're going to use them as examples. The first one was probably Howard Hughes, and they talk about banks being too big to fail. You've got people who are too rich to save. Howard had so much money that he did all these drugs. He obviously went nuts. There's no two ways around it. The doctors were giving him whatever he wanted because he's Howard Hughes, and it killed him. You've also got Elvis, who was given as much as he wanted, any drugs he wanted, whatever he needed, and it killed him. Too rich, too big to say no. And now we've got Michael Jackson, and this is a case that I know Alesandra is very close with. Another genius. All three of these people are geniuses. Absolute genius. The king of pop, the king of making any type of tools or whatever you could imagine was Howard Hughes, and the king of rock and roll, Elvis. All three of them, all dead off of legal drugs. This is pretty incredible. They actually became too big for people to say no to, didn't they?
They did.
Absolutely. I think what little is known, I mean, Howard Hughes became addicted to Valium, which is the same class that brought Michael Jackson down and the same one that actually killed Elvis Presley. And it's also the same one that Heath Ledger, the actor, died on recently, and it's the same class that both Wendy and myself found ourselves addicted to.
That's right.
It's the class in the 70s they called Mother's Little Helper. and I think it's probably one of the most common classes of meds used today. It's things like, Xanax and Ativan and Valium and Klonopin, and people have no idea what it does to us and the strange behavior that it brings up. And with Howard Hughes, he became a horrible recluse, and he's known for kind of his obsessive compulsive issues that came as a result, but it all stemmed from getting addicted to Valium.
And today they are turning on more and more Americans to prescription drugs, prescription antidepressants. Antidepressants, that sounds good. I'm not going to be depressed. This is a good thing. But the side effects can be pretty nasty on some of these. When you have a company, and was listening last night to a report, like Merck, and we're going to be talking next hour about the flu vaccine, what these companies have done with that, and that's absolutely incredible. So trust your drug companies? I don't think so.
Right.
With the Vioxx, they killed as many people with Vioxx, and through their lying to the Food and Drug Administration, has died in the Vietnam War. There's a figure that'll hit home, won't it?
Yeah, and I think what's so sad about the Vioxx is that the clinical trials showed that there was going to be a certain specific group of people that would be injured or killed by it. And, of course, they were penciled in to give damages to. And yet now a lot of our vitamins are at risk because they say they're dangerous, and Vioxx killed more men than we lost in Vietnam. I mean, and that's just one drug. It's one
now,
drug.
wait a minute. I love what you said, Alesandra. They penciled in to pay damages. This was collateral damage. Now, it may have helped a lot of people who had arthritis, but you've got your choice, arthritis or death. Well, excuse me, I don't know. I think I might live with arthritis versus death, especially since there are other products out and other things they can do for it. But penciled in an acceptable death level, right?
Absolutely. Well, if you think about the fact that prescription pills are the #1 industry in the world, bigger than the film industry or entertainment, bigger than the military budget, and you start really thinking about this, and the clinical trials will give, a certain percentage that will be injured or harmed or killed. So sure, it's penciled in a certain number, that they will set aside. Sometimes it may exceed that number, but still you're talking, tens or hundreds of billions of dollars made on the pills before it actually hits recall. So that's what happens.
Well, they don't have to worry with the flu vaccine because they've been given an absolute blanket immunity by Congress on that, so they don't have to pencil in the possible deaths from the flu vaccine because they've been given an escape clause off of that. Isn't that sweet?
Yeah, total indemnification on this one, and it hasn't. I think it's the largest clinical trial in history is what's happening with the swine flu vaccine because it hasn't been tested. and
the largest clinical vaccine in history, clinical trial. Now, Wendy, let's talk a little bit about yours. With all the people, all the death, all the destruction you had around you, and just hitting home, the drugs really helped you through it. And we get back, let's talk about how it helped her through it, but ultimately it grabbed hold of her. More when we get back. I want to talk with Wendy about what happened to her and her story a little bit when we return on Erskine Overnight with Alesandra Rain and Wendy Honeycutt. Now gather what happened to Wendy Honeycutt. Her first son, spinal meningitis, severely retarded. Her mother committed suicide. A few years later, her brother, her best friend, killed himself the same way. Then her middle son, a four-wheeling accident, dies. So she takes some antidepressant pills. The doctor says, hey, you're a little bit depressed. And she's going, yeah, I'm a little bit depressed. I mean, it's sort of like having a bag of potatoes fall on your head and you might have a little headache. I mean, what else could happen? I mean, don't even ask that question. But, I mean, enough's enough. And, of course, you're going to be depressed after having all that happen with your mother, your brother, your children, everybody who was near and dear to you. So the pills helped you at first, didn't they?
I think they did. I think what I was looking for was a way to dull the pain. I think that there was clearly some trauma-induced depression that needed to be treated. And I became very dependent on those meds, and the doctors that were treating me obviously were trying to help me in any way that they knew how, and this is what they knew. This is what the world knows.
So they helped you at first. It was a Band-Aid being placed over it in the fact that it sort of dulled you, it changed you a little bit, and you went around in kind of a la-di-la type world, which wasn't the worst case scenario for you. And then you kept wanting more and more to get the same effect, because after a while, these meds don't work. They don't work as effectively because you start having other changes, don't you, Wendy?
That's correct. You reach what we call tolerance, and you basically rebound, and there's nothing you can do but to try and attempt to add more medication. And I think what we don't realize is that we're making things worse. We're causing, one evil to lead to another, and we're getting ourselves farther and farther down a darker road of abyss that we don't realize how hard it is to come back from.
How hard was it to get off of these meds? How hard was that? Because not only do you have all this because the problems that led you there, that's still in your memory, but then you have this other problem facing you of, oh my God, I'm addicted to this. When did you figure that you were addicted to these meds, and when did you figure they were causing you a problem? How did that come about, and how did you get off of them?
Back in 2003, I began with my holistic doctor trying to treat my situation as a whole and not chase around all different doctors. I began to see that I had a problem when I was acquiring medications from several different sources and through the internet and staying in my home all the time and never going anywhere. It became pretty clear to me that we had a problem. And
well, God bless you that you did find a holistic doctor who would help you.
Oh, he's a precious doctor in Houston. He did walk with me through several years of trying to get freedom from the meds, but even he was not educated in the withdrawal issues that come along with trying to get off of these meds, because I cold turkeyed from several of them all at once, just thinking I could stop them. What
happened when you did?
Oh, life went to hell. I entered 3 days after stopping my meds. I descended into hell. If I had to put everything that I'd ever been through in my life all together, this was worse. This situation formed me and changed my whole world forever.
Well, Alesandra, you had the same thing when you were on the meds for basically pain and one thing and another. You said getting off those meds was the toughest thing you'd ever done.
I don't think most realize, I'm sure there's going to be quite a few listeners that are addicted to the anxiety class or sleeping pills that know what we're talking about, but yeah, it's as if, I think Stevie Nicks, who was the lead singer for Fleetwood Mac, she was addicted to Klonopin, and she said when she went cold turkey, it was as someone opened the gates of hell and kicked her in, and that's a great description, because the fear was just excruciating. Every single sound and noise and pain sores, and I think that's exactly what happened to Michael Jackson, is that his pain just went through the roof, just like mine did, because I had 34 surgeries. But the fear was the hardest for me. Every single thing, every sound, every movement just brings on these waves of terror. And like Wendy, it was life-changing. It made everything else that I had been through seem really small in comparison.
Michael Jackson, Elvis, especially Michael, because you're very familiar with that, Alesandra. What would you have done to have helped Michael? And was he able to have been helped? Because with his money and the yes people around him, could you have gotten to him, do you think? And do you think you could have gotten to him, Wendy? Because not only as a person who's been there, but also as a minister, could you have gotten to a Michael Jackson if you'd had, say you had an hour with him to talk with him?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I would have loved to have had that opportunity. I think that's what caused my biggest grief when I heard what happened to him, because I totally, with all of my heart, believe that I could have helped him and brought not only spiritual help but also physical help, because all of this is intertwined. And I would have loved to have the
I think you're right in the both, and adding the spiritual component to it is really necessary. Alesandra, would you have followed basically the same method to help Michael? And do you think he was crying out for help?
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, he went to treatment twice. Okay. I mean, when he was put on the pills initially, it was back, in 1993, in the fall of 1993 is when he actually admitted that he was addicted to Valium, Ativan, and Xanax. And he tried going cold turkey. He just couldn't do it. He couldn't do it, and he was on a world tour. So I think one of the greatest things that would have helped him had been the ability to actually talk to people who made it back and knew how to come back without that horrible, blood-curdling fear and terrible withdrawal that he tried, and that Wendy and I also did. I mean, that's part of what we do now is we bring people off the meds in a very comfortable and easy fashion so that they can continue on with their lives. We have a lot of people in the entertainment industry as well, and they can't miss a beat. So I think for Michael, the problem is that the people around him were just so willing to keep putting in more and more meds. And to have an anesthesiologist being willing to travel with him during the world tour back in, '93, that started a long time ago. I mean, whose bright idea was it to tell him that he could have anesthesia rather than helping him heal from the Xanax? And Wendy, I'm sure it's the same with you. If somebody would have offered me anesthesia, I would have taken it in a minute.
In a heartbeat.
Yeah, because the raging anxiety and insomnia that you get from these meds is so horrible that you would be willing to have somebody put you under. But what's a shame is that not only did they put him under, they kept doing it. So Michael kept feeling that the answer to his problems with all of the Xanax was to actually be put under with anesthesia every day. And that, to me, is just absolutely criminal.
He did seem to be able to function.
Well, not really, though. If you look at it, once he became really addicted to this class of meds, his production of music went down tremendously. I mean, he stopped touring. He became more of a recluse. His behavior became more strange.
I think one of the amazing things is how many people are functioning that we don't realize they're functioning, but they're very sick, and the lights are on and no one's home. And until you've been there, you can't look at a person and realize that they're struggling. I can now look at a person that I don't even know and realize that they're struggling with prescription medications, and it hurts my heart for them.
More when we get back. Most people, when they're on drugs, do they come to a point to where they're saying, this has spun out of control? And then what grips them? The fear of being off the drugs? What's the key on that, Wendy? What's the key on that, Alesandra? I know, Alesandra, you realized that you just couldn't do it anymore. You couldn't take it anymore. You had to get off of them. And what point does it come where you're saying, this is not medication that's helping me. This is medication that is destroying me? Where do you reach that point?
Sometimes it's very frustrating to watch people to try to get them to come to a place to realize that it is the drugs. That can sometimes be one of our greatest challenges. But in other situations, people will begin to have such issues and symptoms that it becomes very necessary and almost their only choice to try to find a way to get themselves out of the trap that they're in with the medications, and to find a way out, because it affects so much of the central nervous system and everything about how we function in our lives that they simply have to do it.
You're giving a warning to people today, both of you, Alesandra and Wendy. You're giving people a warning, but a lot of people won't heed that warning until they run up against this wall and they realize that, oh my gosh, these drugs are taking me away. They control me instead of me having my own life. I'm dependent on them, and at that point, they're to a point to where they're going to have to get themselves off of the drugs, and a lot of people are very afraid of that. Alesandra, you said there's no reason to be afraid of it. You don't quit cold turkey the way Michael Jackson did. There are ways to get off of it sanely, and especially if you go up to the website Point of Return, you can understand sane ways to get off of the drugs that are not going to have you climbing up the wall. Am I correct on that?
Oh, well, totally. I mean, I think, you know, for any of us that have done it the wrong way, that's the fear. I mean, even when I talked to Wendy the first time, our fear is we don't want to go back to that place that we were in when we tried a cold turkey. You know,
what was that Stevie Nicks said about it? You're staring at the abyss of hell?
Yeah, she said her skin molted and her hair turned white, and that's pretty much what happened to me as well. I mean, I went 18 days where I couldn't even sit down, and it's the deepest exhaustion possible. But your nervous system, it rebounds so severely you can't shut your eyes. And if you start to, you get this like wave of adrenaline. It's truly terrifying. But if it's done correctly, it doesn't have to be like that at all. And I think, you know, that's one of the things that Wendy and I spend so much time, you know, talking to others and kind of expressing. I mean, you look at both of our before pictures and they're appalling. I mean, we were just, you know, like sitting on death's door, both of us. And today, you know, we look like the picture of health, as does our medical director who you've interviewed as well, Erskine, you know, Dr. Code from MS, and he was put on the meds as well. You know, we all look so healthy and vibrant, it's hard to believe any of us were ever at the point we were. You know, and for me, I didn't even know for sure how much of it was the drugs. I knew, because the changes were subtle and they were over a decade. All I knew is that my life couldn't continue like that. I was dying. I was truly dying on these pills, and I knew if I didn't get off, I was going to be dead, but I didn't know what my life would be like without them. I had no idea. It turned out to be the greatest gift in the world because I ended up founding Point of Return, but at the time, it was by far the scariest thing I've ever been through, and Wendy talks to people all the time because she volunteers now with our nonprofit. And
this is part of Wendy's ministry. This is part of what you're giving back to the Lord, is the work that you're doing for other people and bringing them back from the point of no return to a point of return, Wendy, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's an humbling place to be, that what I've gone through can be used to help other people and to bring them hope and to let them see that there is a way out from where they are, and that I can...
You know, it's very interesting. I run into a lot of people, and I said, well, the Lord kept you here for a reason. And they said, well, I don't know what that reason is. You didn't know what your reason was. And then all of a sudden, this has come up. You thought, even though you were in the very depths, you were looking at hell, and the Lord used you. This is what's very interesting to understand. You've got to be open. You've got to keep your mind open. And there are uses for all of us, even things you're not even thinking about, how you can affect people in so many different ways. Now, this was surprising to you. You thought your life was about ended at many points, didn't you, Wendy?
I did. I certainly did. And in a lot of places,
I didn't even care to go on, did you?
Not in a lot of places, I didn't care. There were a couple of times I was hospitalized for overdosing, and I wouldn't say that I was actually trying to commit suicide. While I didn't really care whether or not I lived or died, I just wanted the pain to stop. In a lot of situations, I was unable to sleep, just like Michael Jackson. I was so desperate for sleep that I would take as much, or I could take a half a bottle of Ambien, and it didn't affect me at all.
Good Lord.
And so it became a desperation and an obsession just to get some sleep or to get some relief. But then after I cold turkeyed from all of that, the symptoms and the trauma of what I faced physically was very, very difficult. And being able to see that there could be a light at the end of the tunnel, I just really believed that the Lord was going to show me a way out of being addicted to these meds, and that there was a way to live my life. I just believed for it every day.
Some people look at the light at the end of the tunnel. It's an oncoming train. You're going, oh, no, that's not the light I'm looking for. Now, Alesandra, when you were doing this point of return, we've talked about it when you first started, and now it's how big? It's in 55 countries. You had no idea that there were this many people in need of getting off of prescription drugs, did you? I mean, I knew you knew that there were quite a few, but the response to this has been absolutely off the chart, hasn't it?
Yeah, because I thought I was the only crazy fool, that went to these pills. And I thought, and I was educated. I mean, I had, bachelor's, master's. I'd been really successful. So I think a lot of what's happening today, and a lot of the people that we get in the organization may only be on one medication. They might be on just Ativan or Paxil or, Prozac or Ambien, but they can't get off. And I think the biggest thing today is so few are talking about this. And that was one of the things. Wendy's one of the rare people who, a lot of people would get their life back, and they just want to get as far from the whole experience as they can. And Wendy wouldn't do that. I mean, she wanted to be part of the movement and help others. And we need people speaking out. We need people sharing their stories, because as we came forward and started sharing what we've been through, people just started reaching from all over the world. Yeah, our program's in 55 or 56 countries now, every state of the U.S. It was shocking. It was shocking how many of us are in this problem, and want our life back, too, and that's what's incredible. So we have this amazing community of people that communicate from all over the world that are working to regain their life and spreading the message to others, and it's exquisite. I mean, sometimes I just pinch myself to think of where I was 7 years ago versus today.
55 countries. Point of Return gives people a safe, sane way to get off of drugs, to get off of prescription drugs, some of these that are as dangerous, if not more so, than the street drugs. More when we get back to Alesandra Rain and Wendy Honeycutt. Alesandra Rain's book, Deeds of Trust, is one of, if not the best book I have ever read. It is incredible. I can only tell you that it has my very highest recommendation. If there's a book you want to read that you will pick up and you won't put down, that's the only problem is if you get that book, you're going to pick it up and you're not going to put it down until you finished it. Deeds of Trust. It is powerful. The other thing about it is, it is so well written. It is so well written. The chapters are short. It's extraordinarily readable. She is a master storyteller, a master author. And it doesn't matter if you've got a great story, but you have trouble reading it. This is a book you're going to pick up, and every page your mouth is going to start to fly open. This couldn't have happened. This can't be. Yes, it is too. You can't make this stuff up. It was absolutely an incredible book. Deeds of Trust. AlesandraRain.com and PointOfReturn.com. Wendy, do you have any websites or anything you want to give out or information you'd like to give out?
Well, I don't personally. Everything that I do is associated with Point of Return. And so that is always my recommendation to everyone. My heart is with them. My heart is for them. And I'm believing for a great future for folks to find them.
Now, how did you and Alesandra become friends?
I had been doing the same search on the Internet for quite some time looking for help. I'd tried several different avenues and products trying to find something that would help me. And one Friday evening, I did a search engine and found Point of Return, and I sent in a little bit of an inquiry on the Internet, and within about 2 minutes, she called me on my cell phone, and we visited for just a very short time, and I got off the phone with her as she was packaging up my products to overnight them to Texas, and I cried like a baby. I knew that I had found my answer.
That's one thing about Alesandra. You're a hands-on person. You flat do things. You take care of it. You do it yourself. I don't know how you do everything that you do. You are obviously a driven person who believes so strongly in what you're doing. Any business you'd be very successful in, Alesandra, because nobody takes care of business any better than you do. You're an absolutely incredible. When we're looking at this abuse of drugs, and you're looking at all the money that's being spent. You can't turn the television on without seeing an ad for some drug or another drug. Take this drug, and here are the side effects. Well, it includes death, but hey, don't worry about that one. It'll help you. You'll sleep better. Yeah, you'll sleep better. You'll take the long sleep with this. But the fact of the matter is, they've got lots and lots of money that they're spending. They are buying up television. They're buying up these programs. Hey, you're going to have this person on, you're not going to take our money. We're going to pull out our ads. You like that? Well, they won't tell them that, but they'll imply that. You don't want to have somebody on pushing Ambien, and there you are on the same program. They don't like that very much. So when you're watching this and you're seeing this, it's about money with these drug companies, isn't it? It's all about money and getting people hooked onto this, because the more people they get hooked, the more money they make. They're no different than a street dealer, most of them.
No, and I think what's really a shame is this direct-to-consumer marketing. I mean, the U.S. and New Zealand are the only two countries in the world that allow it. But if you really look at those ads, and it says may help, may, might. The words are very, very carefully chosen, but it's the images we see. We don't really hear the fact that it can cause liver failure, suicidal ideation, or, for men, impotence, women, weight gain.
No, but look at them. They're riding a bicycle. Yeah, they're happy.
Exactly.
They're really having fun, and I want to do that again.
Yeah, it's the illusion of happiness. And I remember seeing those ads and being like, oh, I want that. And now my blood boils. I can't watch television because I can't get through a show without a drug ad coming out, and my blood boils. And I think of all these poor people that can't sleep at night. And then, I had one person call that said, saw the butterfly from Lunesta, only he redrew it as a vampire, because after he was on it, that's how he felt about it. Was a vampire fat. I thought that was just classic. These ads are very good. They're incredibly skilled at marketing. And unfortunately, we're all buying into it, and we're being left without much of a life as a result. And so I think it's time to reclaim it.
Well, and I think when the Lunesta and Ambien was first out, didn't they advertise, the Ambien CR, they advertised those things were not habit-forming and not addictive, which we knew at that point was a lie, and now they don't advertise it, but they still push it.
Yeah, now they say that shouldn't be used for more than 10 days, 10 to 14, whereas most people will get a prescription for a month, and they're already hooked in that first prescription.
Right.
So, Wendy's exactly right.
You get hooked within a month, you're hooked onto it, and then the doctors keep writing for it and keep writing for it, and of course they don't really get paid, but they certainly get a lot of perks and things like that for writing for these various products.
No doubt. My psychiatrist told me he got a free trip to Germany for he and his wife and his family for the manufacturers of Effexor, which was the drug he was giving me every month as well, on top of Klonopin and Ambien and everything. And he was very proud of it. I mean, he didn't even say it as if it was anything unusual, And I don't think they really know what to do with us after, then they tell us we're drug seeking. So
he got a free trip, and you got a free trip to hell. Lots and lots of difference, huh?
Yeah.
More when we get back on Erskine Overnight with Alesandra Rain and Wendy Honeycutt, two of the bravest, strongest people I know who are doing more good than anybody I can think of. These are people who this Christmas celebrate what they're doing. Point of return, go up there. You can help a lot of people. Now, this hour, matter of fact, this entire program is one that you may want to listen to again, or you may want someone who you know needs help to listen to. You can go up to gcnlive.com or ErskineOnRadio.com, and you can listen to this, because we have this and all of our programs archived. Thank you, Dave, for doing that. Thank you, Othman, for directing the program and doing such a great job. But between these two gentlemen, we're able to offer you the program 24/7. So Go up there if you've got someone who is having any sort of a problem with prescription drugs or a non-prescription drugs, pointofreturn.com. Point of Return, tell a little bit more, ladies, if you will, what that does specifically, because I think this is very important for people to know what it does and the method that you're able to use to get people off of some of these most debilitating drugs.
Well, the program itself is actually quite simple. We use, they're all natural, very specific nutrients that the medications deplete heavily, but we don't use anything that'll interact, because a lot of herbs and even things like calcium supplements or, like B1 through B5 can actually make the withdrawals much worse. So part of what we do is to also go through their food and interaction list to make sure that they're eliminating things that they need to. And then we give them items to actually help calm them down and improve sleep and work with depression, and some items that really minimize the withdrawals so that people can step down comfortably. And then part of what Wendy governs, the section that she does, is we have an online forum. And it's a community for people that come from all over the world, and I'll let Wendy speak a little bit more to that. But that's another way that people can speak and kind of share their experience. And Wendy,
yes, Wendy, about the forum, tell a little bit.
Well, we started this forum just a little bit over a year ago after we had sat down and talked about it, Andrea and Alesandra and myself, while I was out there visiting, and it just really seemed like an amazing tool, because it is an everyday battle, and folks have a lot of questions, and due to whatever they may have eaten or just everything that they're doing in their life and their functioning, they need help, they need support, they need guidance each day as to what might be causing a problem or another. So in this forum, they're able to go and share their lives and share with one another, because some of the hardest part of walking out from underneath these drugs is that no one around you understands. No one can possibly fathom what you're feeling or what you're dealing with, because it's all so physical. Even my husband, who's walked through the fiery pits of hell with me, he can't understand because he hasn't felt it, and you can't see it on the outside. It's on the inside. So in the forum, we're able to...
You can talk with others who have been there, others who are there.
That's right.
And that meant how much to you?
Oh, it means everything. It means everything. I think sometimes it's the line that people, it keeps them from failing. It keeps them, because they're able to reach out to someone else and able to conquer those feelings of fear and doubt, because there's someone else there to talk to and to hear what they have to say.
pointofreturn.com. Alesandra Rain, her book is called Deeds of Trust. Wendy Honeycutt, thank you both for being on. Thank you both for all you're doing. May God bless both of you, and have a wonderful drug-free Christmas. Give up to pointofreturn.com, or if you know someone, I also want to talk next time about why so many women are being addicted to prescription drugs as opposed to men. Pointofreturn.com.